The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the dusty ranch where Clara stood outside the barn, her heart heavy with uncertainty. The familiar sounds of the ranch, horses whinnying, the rustling of hay, and the distant laughter of workers, faded into a dull hum as her mind raced with thoughts of her father's mounting debt. It loomed over her like a storm cloud, dark and oppressive. She had never imagined that their family ranch would end up in the hands of the ruthless ranch boss, Jack Miller. Clara recalled the day her father had collapsed, the doctor's stern voice echoing in her mind. His health isn't what it used to be, and the debt, well, it's significant. Clara had felt her world tilt on its axis as the reality of their situation set in. She never thought they would have to ask for help, let alone rely on the very man who had always instilled fear in the hearts of his workers. As the sun continued its descent, Clara leaned against the barn door, her fingers tracing the rough wood, grounding herself in the present. She still could not comprehend how Jack had come to buy her father's debt, and now here she was, caught in a web of obligations that seemed to tighten around her with every passing day. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, she muttered to herself, trying to shake off the gloom. It felt bizarre, even in her own mind, to push for something so trivial when her whole life was changing. The barn door creaked open, and Jack stepped out, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the ground. He was a formidable figure, strong and stoic, with an air of authority that commanded respect. Clara's heart raced as their eyes met for the first time since the contract had been signed. There was an intensity in his gaze that she had never noticed before, a flicker of something indefinable that sent a shiver down her spine. "Clara," he said, breaking the silence that hung heavily between them. His voice was deep and gravelly, like the rumble of thunder in the distance, sending ripples of mixed emotions through her. She felt anger bubbling beneath the surface, yet there was an undeniable pull she couldn't ignore. "You're late with the evening chores." "I'll get to it," she replied, her voice sharper than she intended. Clara felt a swell of frustration. This man had come into their lives like a storm, disrupting everything she had known. She wasn't ready to simply comply with his demands. "You can't ignore your responsibilities just because you're upset," he shot back, his temper flaring momentarily. The tension between them crackled like static electricity, and Clara felt a surge of defiance rise within her. "Upset? Is that what you think this is?" Clara stepped forward, refusing to back down. "You have no idea what this feels like, Jack. You bought my father's debt. You didn't just save us. You've taken control of my life." Jack's jaw tightened, and for a moment they stood there, the air thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow across the sky, Clara's heart raced, caught between anger and something else, something she didn't want to name. "Look, I didn't make this decision lightly," Jack finally said, his voice softer now, revealing a hint of vulnerability beneath his tough exterior. "I'm trying to help, Clara, but I need you to trust me." "Trust you?" she echoed incredulously. "You don't understand anything about trust." Clara felt her chest tighten as the weight of her words hung in the air. She didn't want to crumble under the pressure, but the reality was suffocating. "Then teach me," he urged, his intensity unwavering. "Show me what you need." The challenge in his voice ignited something within Clara, a mix of resentment and intrigue. She didn't want to feel drawn to him, yet she could see a flicker of sincerity in his eyes that challenged her perceptions. Maybe there was more to him than the ranch boss persona he wore like armor. Yet she was conflicted. The very thought of being pulled into his world, of becoming a part of his life, left her feeling exposed and vulnerable. "You think this is easy for me?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You have no idea what I'm dealing with. It's not just a debt, it's my father's legacy." "I don't want to take anything from you," he replied, stepping closer, the distance between them shrinking. "I want to help you keep it." For a brief moment, Clara felt her resolve waver. There was a sincerity in Jack's tone that was hard to ignore. But as quickly as it arrived, the doubt returned. How could she trust someone who had taken so much from her? With a heavy heart, she turned away, needing space to breathe, to think clearly. The reality of her situation crashed down around her, leaving her feeling raw and exposed. Jack might have had his reasons for purchasing the debt, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was now just another asset in his eyes. As she stepped back into the barn, the scent of hay and leather surrounded her, grounding her amid the turmoil of her thoughts. She had to make a choice, but for now, she was still lost in the chaos of her emotions. Clara realized then that everything was about to change, and whether she was ready or not, she was no longer just Clara. She was bound to Jack, and that connection held an uncertain promise of both danger and allure. Clara had been working on the ranch for several days now, and the initial shock of her father's debt weighing heavily on her shoulders slowly began to transform into a peculiar determination. Each morning greeted her with the harsh light of dawn, and the scent of hay mixed with the earthy aroma of the land filled her lungs as she stepped outside. She was no longer just a daughter worried about her family's legacy. She was becoming someone who had to confront the realities of ranch life head-on. As she moved through the early morning chill, she joined the other ranch hands in the barn, their laughter and banter creating a strange sense of normalcy amid her chaos. Clara had never imagined herself as one of them, but the necessity of hard work and a sense of community tugged at her heart. It felt right, even as every muscle in her body protested from the labor of lifting bales of hay and mucking out stalls. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, she thought, reflecting on how sharing her experiences could help her process what was happening to her life. Jack was always nearby, overseeing everything with a watchful eye. He moved with a natural authority that made him both respected and feared among the workers. As Clara observed him, she couldn't help but notice how the sun caught the contours of his rugged face, the way his strong hands commanded the reins of his horses. Yet there was something more than mere strength beneath the surface. The ranch boss had moments when he secluded himself, staring out towards the horizon as if he were confronting some internal storm. During one of these mornings, Clara found herself carrying 2 full buckets of water from the well, when she spotted Jack standing by the fence, gazing into the distance. She hesitated, feeling that strange mix of anger and attraction bubbling inside her each time she saw him. Her fingers tightened around the bucket's handles. He doesn't get to just waltz in and take over, she muttered under her breath, though a part of her was aching for his recognition. Need a hand? Jack's voice broke through her thoughts, sonorous and deep. She turned her head, surprised to find him close, his dark eyes locking onto hers. No, I'm fine, she replied, more sharply than she meant to. She felt her cheeks flush, a mixture of embarrassment and frustration. Clara struggled to maintain her composure in front of him, especially when he had a way of looking at her that stirred her insides. You look like you're about to drop them, he said, a hint of amusement in his tone. Let me help. Before she could protest further, he had taken one of the buckets, his strong hand brushing against hers. An electric charge passed between them, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. She quickly turned away, focusing on the ground ahead, acutely aware of how her heart raced. It's just a bit heavy, she finally managed, trying to sound nonchalant. I can handle it. Jack chuckled softly. Handling it alone isn't always the best choice. Sometimes accepting help is a sign of strength. He glanced at her and she couldn't decipher the challenge in his eyes. You're new to this, Clara. We all help each other here. Right, she retorted, feeling the weight of his statement. But I didn't ask for this job, Jack. I didn't ask for your help either. Understood. He stepped back, giving her space as they approached the trough where the horses drank. But you belong here now, whether you like it or not. The realization hit her hard. She had become part of this world, bound to a man who had purchased her father's debt. The dynamics of their relationship were confusing. She was both grateful and resentful, and the two emotions collided painfully in her chest. As Clara poured the water into the trough, she felt her frustration bubbling over. I don't belong to you, Jack. Jack's expression darkened for a moment and a shadow crossed his features. You may not want to admit it, but you're part of this ranch and part of my responsibility now. There was a weight in his voice, a sincerity that cut through her anger. Responsibility? Clara faced him, her voice rising slightly. Are you doing this out of responsibility or control? Maybe a little of both, he admitted, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his stoic facade. But that doesn't mean I don't want what's best for you and your family. I can't change the past, Clara. All I can do is try to make things better moving forward. His words hung between them, heavy and unresolved. Clara studied his face for a moment, searching for any sign that he was playing her. Yet all she saw reflected back was sincerity, an emotion that terrified her. Look, she said, softening her tone. I don't know what you want from me, Jack. I don't even know if I can trust you. I understand that, he replied softly. But trust is built in small moments. All I ask is for you to give me a chance. Let me prove that I'm not just the man who took over your father's debt. His eyes searched hers, and she felt as though he was looking for something deeper, something they both needed, but hesitated to acknowledge. Clara sighed, unsure of how to navigate the tangled web of her feelings. She glanced away, needing to collect her thoughts. I will try, she murmured finally. But it's going to take time. Time is all I can offer, Jack said, a hint of a smile breaking through his serious demeanor. And maybe some good old-fashioned hard work. They shared a moment of understanding, and for the first time, Clara felt the flicker of hope beneath her anger. Perhaps Jack wasn't just the ranch boss she had been resigned to loathe. Maybe, just maybe, he could become something more. As the days went on, Clara found herself drawn into the rhythm of ranch life. The camaraderie of the workers, the beauty of the landscapes, and the serenity of the horses began to soothe her soul. And with each passing moment, her feelings for Jack began to shift. But misunderstandings loomed in the background, threatening to disrupt whatever fragile connection they were beginning to build. She had her pride, and he had his past. Would they ever find a way to bridge the gap between them? Only time would tell. As Clara moved through the ranch, the weight of her father's declining health settled uncomfortably in her chest. Each day the tension grew, both in her heart and in the whispers of the ranch workers around her. They watched her, their eyes flickering with curiosity and a hint of pity. She could feel the change in the air, an unspoken understanding that her situation had shifted dramatically ever since Jack had intervened in her life. Jack was a constant presence now, his authority firm yet strangely comforting. As she worked under his watchful gaze, Clara began to notice the nuances of his leadership. He had a way of commanding respect without raising his voice, a quality that both terrified and intrigued her. The men and women who worked for him were loyal, and Clara found herself reluctantly admiring the culture he had cultivated among them. They joked, shared stories, and lent each other a hand, all while navigating the demands of ranch life. Yet, as Clara poured her energy into her new responsibilities, her emotions were in turmoil. Each time she crossed paths with Jack, sparks seemed to ignite in the air. He would glance at her with those deep-set eyes of his, filled with a mix of concern and unyielding resolve. It drove her mad. Was it sympathy he felt, or was it something else? It was a question that haunted her thoughts even as she busied herself with chores. One afternoon, Clara found herself alone with Jack in the stables. The sun hung low, casting a warm glow throughout the barn, illuminating the dust motes that danced between them. She was grooming a horse, her fingers moving methodically through the mare's thick mane. Jack leaned against the wooden stall, arms crossed, his presence both intimidating and magnetic. "You're getting better at this, Clara," he said, his voice breaking the silence. She shot him a sidelong glance. "I had to learn somehow," she replied, trying to keep her tone light, though the bitterness crept in. Not everyone has a ranch boss who buys their father's debts to force them into work. His expression darkened slightly, but he didn't rise to her bait. Instead, he stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking. "I didn't force you into anything. You're making choices every day, choices that matter. You're learning to stand on your own 2 feet. Clara felt a flush creep up her neck. "Learning under duress," she muttered, brushing the mare's coat more vigorously than necessary. "It's not exactly a choice when my life is at stake, is it?" "Is it your life or your pride that's at stake?" he challenged softly. "This ranch is your home now, Clara. You need to accept that." "Accepting doesn't mean liking it," she shot back. I didn't ask for any of this, and frankly, I don't trust you. Jack looked taken aback, his brows knitting together in frustration. I get that you're angry, but you need to understand that I'm trying to help you and your family. I can't change what happened, but I can offer you a life that's more stable than the one you were living. Stability? Clara echoed, almost laughing. Is that what you call it? I'm working for the man who bought my father's debt. Do you think that feels stable to me? There was a weight in his gaze, a flicker of something she couldn't quite interpret. Clara, you have every right to be upset, but I'm not the enemy here. I'm just trying to give you a future. By holding me hostage, she said, her voice rising. By giving you a chance to prove yourself, he countered, his voice steady. You don't even know what you're capable of yet. Maybe I don't want to know, she said, her heart pounding. Maybe all I want is to be free of this mess. Freedom doesn't always mean running away, Jack said. Sometimes it's about facing what's in front of you and taking control of it. His words struck a chord. Clara fell silent, her defenses wavering as she considered the truth in his statement. Was she really just running away from the challenge ahead of her? Or was she standing her ground? The tension between them began to shift as they stood there, each lost in their thoughts. Jack broke the silence first, his voice low and earnest. I know you're scared, Clara, but you can trust me. I won't let anything happen to you or your family. His sincerity surprised her, and for a fleeting moment Clara saw beyond the ranch boss persona. There was a man standing before her, flawed, vulnerable, and human. It made her uneasy, yet she couldn't help but acknowledge it. You mean that? I do, he replied simply. But you have to meet me halfway. Let's work together. Prove that you belong here. Not just because of your father's debt, but because you want to be a part of this ranch. She hesitated, her pride battling with the flicker of hope he ignited within her. Clara took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. I'll try, but no promises, she said, her heart racing as she spoke. Jack nodded, a small smile breaking through the tension. That's all I ask. As they finished their chores that afternoon, Clara felt something shift. An understanding, maybe even a connection, was forming between them. She might not have signed up for this life willingly, but perhaps it held more possibilities than she had dared to believe. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that her journey was just beginning, and somewhere deep inside she felt a spark of curiosity about what lay ahead with Jack. The ranch was no longer just a place of burden. It was turning into a space where she could discover her strength and resilience. The storm had come out of nowhere, dark clouds swirling ominously in the sky, pulling Clara from her thoughts as she stood by the barn. The distant rumble of thunder felt like a warning, a prelude to the chaos that would soon unfold. Her heart raced not just from the impending storm, but because today her father was unwell, and she feared the worst. The ranch, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison with walls closing in around her. Jack appeared at her side, his expression uncharacteristically serious as he surveyed the gathering storm. We need to get the horses inside, he said briskly, his deep voice cutting through the thickening air. Clara nodded, her chest tightening at the thought of her father's health and the responsibilities that pressed down on her like the darkening sky above. They moved quickly, working side by side, and in that moment, Clara could feel the tension between them shift. It was as if the storm outside mirrored the turmoil she felt inside. Jack was no longer just the ranch boss who had purchased her father's debt. In this frantic rush, he was someone who cared, someone who would not abandon her to face the storm alone. Once the horses were safely secured, Clara stepped back into the barn, feeling the cool air contrast sharply against her flushed skin. She caught Jack's eye, and for a moment the world outside faded. The raindrops began to patter against the barn roof, a soothing rhythm that calmed her racing heart. Thank you for helping, she said, the words escaping before she could think to retract them. Jack shrugged, but a hint of a smile played on his lips. It's what we do here. We look out for each other, Clara appreciated the sentiment, though the heaviness in her heart remained. "What if it's not enough?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I can't do this?" He stepped closer, the warmth of his presence enveloping her. "You're stronger than you think, Clara. You've already shown more resilience than most." His words were laced with sincerity, and Clara felt her defenses start to crack, the walls she had built around her heart beginning to crumble. But just then, a loud crash of thunder echoed through the barn, jolting her back to reality. "I shouldn't be leaning on you," she said abruptly, stepping away, trying to regain her composure. "I need to handle my own problems." "Why do you keep pushing me away?" Jack asked, his voice steady yet edged with frustration. Clara could see the conflict in his eyes, a battle of emotions that mirrored her own. "I'm here to help you." "Help or control?" she shot back, crossing her arms defensively. "I can't tell the difference anymore, Jack." His expression softened and he ran a hand through his hair, a sign of his own agitation. "I didn't choose this situation, neither did you. But we have to make the best of it. Let me in, Clara. You don't have to face this alone." Clara felt a tear slip down her cheek, surprising her with its suddenness. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice trembling as she wiped it away. "I'm scared of losing my father, scared of failing at this ranch, and scared of whatever this is between us." As the wind howled outside, Jack stepped even closer, his eyes locked onto hers. There was a vulnerability in his gaze that made her heart flutter. "You're not alone in your fear, Clara. I'm scared too. Scared of what this connection means, of letting someone in." The air between them crackled with unspoken tension, as if the storm was drawing them closer. Clara could sense the shift, the gravity of the moment pulling them together. Just then the lights flickered, casting shadows across their faces. The barn felt intimate, cocooned from the chaos outside, and in that space, everything else faded away. Jack reached for her hand, his touch gentle yet firm. "We're in this together. No matter what," he promised. And before she could overthink it, before she could pull away, he leaned in. Clara's breath caught in her throat, the world around them disappearing as their lips met in a soft, tentative kiss. It was electric. A surge of emotions washed over her, breaking down the last of her defenses. Clara melted into him, her worries and fears momentarily forgotten. This was not just a kiss. It was a promise, an acknowledgement of the bond they were forging amidst the storm. As they pulled away, both breathless, the tension that had been building between them shifted once more. Clara felt lighter, a weight lifted from her shoulders. "I didn't expect that," she murmured, her cheeks flushed. "Neither did I," Jack replied, a tentative smile breaking through his typically stoic demeanor. "But it felt right." Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the barn, there was a newfound clarity. Clara realized that Jack was not just a ranch boss. He was a man capable of vulnerability and compassion. And with that understanding, her perspective began to change. "Whatever happens next," she said softly, looking up at him, "I want to face it together." Jack nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Together. As the rain poured down, they stood side by side, united against the storm, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Clara felt a sense of determination swell within her. Perhaps this journey, with Jack at her side, was the beginning of something beautiful, something worth fighting for. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a fresh scent of rain that mingled with the earthy aroma of the ranch. Clara stood at the doorway of the barn, staring out at the drenched landscape. The clouds were beginning to part, revealing patches of blue sky, but the aftermath of the tempest still lingered in the air. Inside, the warmth of the barn felt like a comforting embrace as she reflected on the tumultuous events of the night before. Jack had been a force of nature, an anchor in the chaos, and now, as Clara thought back to the kiss they had shared, warmth flooded her cheeks. It was a moment that had cracked open the wall she had built around her heart, turning fear into something else entirely. Hope. She never expected that their relationship would evolve this way, but standing there, she felt a stir of determination. "I want to face whatever comes next with you," she had said, and it felt right. With newfound courage, Clara made her way to the main house, the wooden floor creaking under her weight. She could hear the faint sound of her father's voice, a soft rasp that echoed through the hallways. He was recovering, slowly but surely, and each conversation felt like a fragile promise of better days ahead. As she entered the room, she found her father sitting up in bed, his face pale but his eyes bright with clarity. "Clara," he said, a smile breaking through the weariness. "You look different today." "I feel different," she replied, trying to contain the excitement bubbling within her. "Things have changed." "Is that so?" he asked, his eyebrows arching in curiosity. "What kind of changes?" "The ranch. Jack?" She hesitated, her thoughts momentarily drifting to the man who had stepped up when she needed him the most. "He's been a great help. More than I could ever have imagined." Her father nodded slowly, a knowing look in his eyes. "That Jack, huh? A man of few words, but I've seen how he treats the workers. He's got a good heart." Clara smiled softly, her heart swelling at his approval. "He does. It's just complicated, you know? There's a lot at stake." "Life always is," her father replied. "But remember, my girl, it's the connections we make that give life meaning. Don't shy away from them." With those words, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She needed to talk to Jack to clear the air and embrace whatever blossomed between them. After spending a few moments with her father, she stepped outside again, the sun now shining brightly over the ranch. The workers were moving about, tending to the horses and repairing the fences that the storm had damaged. She spotted Jack near the barn, his silhouette framed against the morning light. He was focused, his brow furrowed in concentration as he spoke with one of the hands about the repairs. Clara felt her heart race as she approached, her palms sweaty with anticipation. "Jack," she called out, her voice cutting through the hum of activity. He looked up, his expression shifting from concentration to surprise as he took in her eager demeanor. "Clara," he replied, a hint of a smile creeping onto his lips. "Everything okay?" "It is. I just wanted to talk." "Sure," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans and stepping closer. The air felt charged as their eyes locked. "What's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, Clara gathered her thoughts. "Last night, I've been thinking about it a lot, about us." Jack's expression hardened slightly, uncertainty flickering in his gaze. She could see the walls he had built around himself rising once more, and she knew she had to break through them. "I want to know you, Jack. I want to understand what this is between us," she started, her voice strong despite the fluttering in her stomach. "I don't want to push you away. I want to face this together." He hesitated, his eyes flickering with something unreadable. "Clara, I'm not used to letting people in. This is all new for me." "Me too," she admitted, her heart pounding. "But we can't let fear decide for us. I need you to be honest with me. What do you want?" Jack ran a hand through his hair, the familiar gesture revealing his inner turmoil. "I want to protect this place, protect you, but I can't pretend I'm not scared of what that means. It's complicated." "Life is complicated," she countered gently. "But it's our choice how we navigate it. Together." The moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken words. Slowly, Jack stepped closer, his hands resting on her shoulders. "You're right," he said softly, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "I don't want to miss this." "I don't want to miss you." Clara felt a rush of relief wash over her, the tension easing as they stood locked in each other's gaze. "Then let's face it together," she whispered. Jack's lips curled into a smile, and Clara felt her heart lift. They both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it. As days turned into weeks, Clara and Jack found themselves navigating their relationship with open hearts. They shared late-night conversations, laughter, and moments of silent understanding. Clara watched as Jack softened, revealing glimpses of the man behind the stoic exterior, a man willing to share his burdens and joys. Clara's father continued to heal, and the ranch flourished under their combined efforts. The community began to notice the changes, whispers of admiration slowly replacing the gossip. Clara stood beside Jack, together overlooking the land they both cherished, a tapestry woven with hope and resilience. "Thank you for being you," Clara said one evening, the sun setting behind them in a blaze of color. "Thank you for being brave," Jack replied, a twinkle in his eye. And in that moment, they knew they had chosen each other, not just in times of struggle but for the journey that lay ahead. As Clara looked towards the horizon, she felt a sense of peace wash over her, knowing that love, much like the fields they tended, takes time to grow but flourishes when nurtured with care. Thank you for listening, and if you like this story, please leave a comment.